Hello friends, welcome to a new episode of Drishti IAS editorial analysis. In this editorial analysis, we do three things. First of all, we link the editorial to the UPSC syllabus. Secondly, we try to understand the key points of the editorial. And thirdly, we also look at some key concepts that have come in the editorial and are important from exam point of view. So let us begin today's editorial analysis. Today's editorial has been taken from the Hindu and it has appeared on 6th of May. The title of the editorial is Dangerous Drift. It talks about the encounters in Kashmir and it says that these encounters are on the rise and they are taking a disproportionate toll on the security personnel. Now let us see its linkage with the UPSC syllabus. So it directly links with GS paper 3 where we have security or internal security as one of the topics. Under this, it links with role of external and non-state actors in creating challenges to the internal security. And also it links with the security challenge and their management in the border area and linkages of organized crime with terrorism. So after establishing this linkage with the syllabus, let us look at the key points of the editorial. The editorial says that the encounters in Kashmir are on the rise and they are taking a disproportionate toll on the security personnel. In the past few weeks, we have seen that some encounters have taken place and which has resulted in a lot of casualties among the security forces. And this is a cause for concern that why security forces are suffering so many casualties. In the first week of April, there was an encounter in which 5 paracommandos, they lost their lives while killing 5 terrorists. And this kind of toll being suffered by the Indian Army, especially by the elite forces, is simply unacceptable. So there must be some accountability ensured within the armed forces that how come so many lives are being lost in these encounters. And these rising number of encounters should also signal to the political establishment that maybe it is time to engage in dialogue with all the parties concerned and arrive at a political solution so that there can be lasting peace in the valley. The editorial then talks about the Handwara encounter and it says that the deaths of 4 soldiers and a police officer in an encounter with the terrorists near Handwara town in Jammu and Kashmir calls attention to a difficult time ahead. That means the rising number of encounters, they are pointing to a very grim situation in Jammu and Kashmir. It further says that it is unusual and disproportionate for just a couple of terrorists to take down 5 highly skilled and motivated soldiers. So this is the major problem with these encounters. At the Indian security forces, they are suffering a heavy loss of life. And in this case, we lost a commanding officer of a battalion in the rank of a colonel, a major, 2 other ranks, and a special operations group policeman in the rank of a sub-inspector. And this calls into question the kind of ground intelligence that the security forces are getting and their standard operating procedures, which led to such heavy casualties for nabbing just 2 terrorists. Now the details that have been given of the encounter are sketchy, but they provide compelling evidence of an operation that went horribly wrong. Further, it says that the way this operation ended will also have ramifications on both the morale and the operating procedures on future operations of this kind that go on all the time in this shadowy theater of proxy war. We'll also look at Pakistan's proxy war in the key concept section today. It will further raises some doubt that though this Handwara encounter, it ended tragically and on Saturday, but the news about it or details surrounding it did not emerge till well after the Sunday's flypast and the show of solidarity. So editorial is raising a point whether this suppression of information was planned so that this flypast which was being done to honor the Corona warriors by the security forces, that goes unhindered and the public attention remains focused on that flypast and not on the encounter and its tragic outcome. Editorial also points to the challenges that remain in Jammu and Kashmir and it says that it should be evident by now to most that changing the nomenclature and status of J&K has not addressed any of the underlying causes of unrest and angst among the people of the region. So editorial is pointing towards the J&K Reorganization Act 2019 through which the state was bifurcated into 2 UTs of J&K and Ladakh. But it says that this reorganization has not addressed the underlying cause of the anger and the unrest among the population, and that is evident in these encounters. An editorial says that neither has it deterred Pakistan from its goals of supporting cross-border terrorism. So Pakistan, through its army as well as its intelligence agency, it has been supporting this insurgency in Kashmir for long, and this change in status of Jammu and Kashmir has done nothing to stop Pakistan, which is evident from the rising ceasefire violations as well as infiltration attempts and the regular encounters that the security forces are forced to do in Jammu and Kashmir. Further, the editorial says that since the beginning of this year, in only 127 days, 55 terrorists have been killed by the security forces, and this translates to roughly one encounter every 2 days, which is a very high number, and which shows that peace remains elusive in Kashmir, which was the major idea behind this reorganization of Jammu and Kashmir. Further, the editorial says that in the unhealthy vacuum that New Delhi has created since August 5 last year, such encounters have done nothing other than aid the impulse of the disaffected to embrace arms. So the editorial is saying that by the August 5 action, through which the state was bifurcated into two UTs, these encounters have become that much more common and frequent, and they have only aided the impulse of the disaffected population, especially the youth of Jammu and Kashmir, to take up arms against the state. Finally, the editorial says that the center must realize it has reached the point of diminishing returns and should look ways for arresting this trend. So the center has to bring all the disaffected sections back to the negotiating table, because there can only be a political solution which can bring lasting peace to the region. This will also help in addressing the sense of alienation felt by the youth of Jammu and Kashmir, that their concerns are not the concerns of rest of India. So that feeling of alienation has to go away, and for that the political process and system must start functioning again. The panchayat elections have been delayed in Jammu and Kashmir because of this COVID-19 pandemic. They must also be conducted as soon as possible with proper safeguards. So these were the key points in the editorial. Now let us look at the key concepts to learn. Today we will look at Pakistan's proxy war and J&K Reorganization Act 2019. Pakistan's proxy war in Kashmir. So Pakistan has been engaged in a proxy war in Kashmir for a long time now. And here we should be knowing the meaning of a proxy war, where two countries which are at war, they do not engage directly in fighting. That is known as a proxy war. If we take the example of Cold War, then US and USSR, though they were the opposing parties, but they were not engaging in fighting directly, and they were engaging in proxy wars against each other. So any war which is conducted through a third party is a proxy war. The Pakistan Army and the Inter-Services Intelligence, better known as ISI, are known as the Deep State, and they have been waging a war against India through asymmetric means as part of their strategy of bleeding India through 1,000 cuts. So here we should know that Pakistan Army and ISI, they together form the Deep State. Now this is a very important term, and Deep State means a state within a state. That means the levers of power are with this Deep State. So in Pakistan, the army and the ISI, they form the Deep State. They are controlling the levers of power. They are waging a war against India through asymmetric means. Asymmetric war means where a professional army, in this case Indian Army, it is faced with fighting insurgents. So that means a asymmetric warfare. And what is their strategy? And this strategy Pakistan has adopted after the 1971 debacle, where it was forced to let go of East Pakistan, and East Pakistan became the liberated Bangladesh. So that feeling of hurt still remains, and they want to do the same to India and make India bleed through 1,000 cuts. So Pakistan's war began in the early 1980s when the Deep State backed militancy in Punjab. So they first started with Punjab, and they supported the separatist groups in Punjab. And after 1989-90, the Pakistan Army and ISI also began to support the uprising in Jammu and Kashmir. And this happened due to some political misadventures by the central government in India as well, which interfered in the political functioning of Jammu and Kashmir, and that disaffected a large section of the youth. Now let us see proxy war in Kashmir. So Pakistan's war in Jammu and Kashmir and elsewhere in India is clearly a war being waged by one state against another through asymmetric means. So India is there with its professional army, but on the other side you have this disorganized insurgent groups, militant groups supported by Pakistan. So these terrorist groups like Lashkar-e-Taiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed are sponsored, financed, armed, trained and indoctrinated by the ISI. Lashkar-e-Taiba is led by Hafiz Saeed and Jaish-e-Mohammed by Masood Azhar. They are known terrorists. So whenever there is a lot of firing done by the Pakistan army, they are basically interested in providing cover to the militants to infiltrate the line of control. And Pakistan claims that it only provides political, diplomatic, and moral support to Kashmiri insurgents, whom it calls freedom fighters. Pakistan is also known for this definition of good terrorist and bad terrorist, which is rejected by India. India feels that a terrorist is a terrorist and there is no distinction between a good terrorist and a bad terrorist. But Pakistan, because it is a state sponsor of terrorism, it wants that those terrorists who are fighting its war in Afghanistan or in India, it terms them as good terrorists or freedom fighters. In reality, the terrorist groups work under the patronage of ISI and they do its bidding, much like the Haqqani network, which is operative in Afghanistan and designated as a terrorist organization. ISI has a separate wing that controls all the activities of anti-India terrorist organizations, and it also runs terrorist training camps in Pakistan occupied Kashmir and other parts of Pakistan. So Pakistan is based on the identity of not India. Pakistan also tries to accuse India of human rights violations in Jammu and Kashmir, and through its aggressive diplomacy in United Nations, Organization of Islamic Countries, and other Arab multilateral groupings. Though the truth is that Pakistan's record on human rights is nothing to write about, and Pakistan is facing global attention for supporting terrorism in organizations like FATF, which is Financial Action Task Force, where it has been listed in the grey list, and India has been trying to put it in the blacklist. Pakistan is also operating a big network of printing and circulating fake Indian currency notes, which is also known as FICN, fake Indian currency notes, through its own government presses in order to undermine Indian economy. And this was also one of the reasons cited for India's demonetization when it happened, that this fake currency was in circulation and it was undermining Indian economy, and that is why an exercise like demonetization was needed. Later on, there has been a lot of criticism of demonetization, but this was one of the stated objectives of demonetization at that point in time. Now, recently, the ISI has once again begun to support and provide shelter to the so-called Khalistanis with a view to launching renewed efforts to revive the separatist movement in Punjab. And here we should also know about the Kartarpur corridor. So there have been security concerns voiced by the security experts that Kartarpur corridor can be used by Pakistan or misused by Pakistan for infiltration purpose. So it is very important on the part of Indian security agencies to remain on high alert that they do not allow this Kartarpur corridor to be used by Pakistan for its nefarious objectives. Now, terrorist attacks targeting military and critical installations like Pathankot, Uri, they are testimony to the fact that Pakistan is waging a proxy war against India through asymmetric means. So it is very clear that Pakistan is engaging in proxy war against India. But of late, India has also realized that asking Pakistan to stop is not making any headway with the Pakistan's establishment. So India has also tried to return Pakistan the same favor through surgical strikes. So this was about proxy war being waged by Pakistan. Now let us look at the Reorganization Act 2019. So on August 5, 2019, Indian government took a historic decision by scrapping special status to Jammu and Kashmir, which was granted by Article 370. This is very important. Now the J&K Reorganization Act, which contains provisions to divide the state into two UTs, came into effect from October 31st, 2019. What are the salient features of the Act? So the Act reorganizes the erstwhile state of Jammu and Kashmir into two UTs, the UT of J&K and the UT of Ladakh. Now the UT of J&K will be with a legislature, something like UT of Puducherry, and the UT of Ladakh will comprise Kargil and Leh districts, and it will function like the UT of Chandigarh. That means it will not have a legislature. The Indian Constitution and the Indian laws would now be applicable to both the UTs. The Act provides for a legislative assembly for the UT of J&K, and the total number of seats in the assembly will be 107. And this is important that out of these, 24 seats will remain vacant on account of certain areas of J&K being under the occupation of Pakistan. And these areas are basically Pakistan occupied Kashmir, which is also known as Azad Kashmir, and the Gilgit-Baltistan area. Now further seats will be reserved in the assembly for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes in proportion to their population in the UT of J&K. And the assembly will have a term of 5 years, and the lieutenant governor must summon the assembly at least once in 6 months, which is the norm in rest of India. Now the legislative assembly may make laws for any part of the UT of J&K related to any matters specified in the state list of the constitution, except police and public order, which for a UT comes under the central government. and also any matter in the concurrent list applicable to UTs. We should know that these lists are mentioned under Article 246 or the 7th schedule of the Constitution. Divides the subject of governance into state list, union list and concurrent list. Of J&K will have a council of ministers of not more than 10% of the total number of members in the assembly. The council will aid and advise the LG on matters that the assembly has powers to make laws. The chief minister will communicate all decisions of the council to the lieutenant governor. Regarding High Court, it says that High Court of J&K will be the common High Court for the two UTs. Further, the UT of J&K will have an Advocate General to provide legal advice to the government of the UT. The Legislative Council of the state of J&K has been abolished and all acts pending in the council have lapsed. Now let us also look at Article 370 in brief. Article 370, it was a constitutional provision that gave Jammu and Kashmir its special status. The provision was incorporated in Part 21 of the Constitution, which says temporary, transitional and special provisions. So as evident from the title of the part, it was supposed to be a temporary provision and its applicability was projected to last till the formulation and adoption of the state's constitution. It restricted the parliament's legislative powers with respect to the state of J&K. But now it has been abrogated by the union government. This was all in today's editorial analysis. Now let us look at Jammu and Kashmir's map and see where Handwara is located. Though this is not very important from exam point of view, but we should have a clear idea that whenever we come across any name of a place, then we should definitely look it up in the atlas. This will be very handy for remembering information and it will also give you a better idea about the location of places. So Handwara is located towards northwest of Srinagar. So let us look at what kind of questions can be asked in PT and mains. So in PT, you can be asked about Article 370. You can be asked about J&K Reorganization Act. You can be asked questions like how many seats of J&K Legislative Assembly have been kept vacant and for what reason. So the seats have been kept vacant because some area of the J&K is under Pakistan's illegal occupation. So one should be knowing that. And in mains, the questions can be on cross-border terrorism, on proxy war being waged by Pakistan. You can also be asked about surgical strike and now what is Indian security establishment's policy of dealing with such cross-border terrorist incidents. Also a question on India-Pakistan relation which will become part of GS paper 2. But it can also be asked in GS paper 3 from internal security perspective. So this was all in today's editorial analysis. We'll see you next time with another editorial. Thank you.